Hey guys, today we're talking about Interstellar. Interstellar is a movie directed by Chris Nolan and features a lot of Chris Nolan's, I don't want to say tropes because I don't want to be cynical, but it has a lot of his defining directorial characteristics. It has a long running time, it has a strong sci-fi bent, or at least it's a sci-fi context. But at the core of it is a big moral conflict, if you want, if you may, that involves family drama. It involves a little bit of a fantasy element, even though the movie doesn't want to call itself a sci-fi or a fantasy movie. It prefers to call itself a science fiction. There's definitely an element in this movie that's introduced in the third act that I would definitely consider more fantasy than I would science fiction. The positives of this movie. Well, first let me get the basic synopsis. The synopsis is a group of astronomers led by McConaughey have to go to another galaxy. They have to take off in a ship, fly off to another galaxy to find another planet for Earth to colonize, because Earth is dying. From what I recall, it was because of climate change. There's lots of dust bowls and lots of weather catastrophe that's going on that makes Earth uninhabitable. So McConaughey has to leave his family behind, creating a big family tension. And he goes with Anne Hathaway and a number of other characters to find this other planet. The big dilemma, though, that develops in the second act is that because, according to this movie's logic, time is different in other parts of the galaxy, even though McConaughey is still the same age he was when he left, they spend an hour on this one planet, checking out this one planet, but that 1 hour on that planet equals 10 years on Earth. So his children are growing up, and his whole life on Earth is leaving him behind, and he now has to get back home before they get too old and pass away. So that creates a lot of tension and lots of suspense for McConaughey. You really want him to get back on time to see his family. So there is some strong, dramatic, suspenseful moments throughout this movie. Lots of moments in this movie that tug at your heartstrings, and most of that, 90% of that, is related to McConaughey and his daughter. The tension between him and his daughter, because she's mad because he left, and so he's trying to get back to her. So the positives are this movie has, like most Chris Nolan movies, great special effects. It has strong performances, believable performances, great casting choices. Michael Caine, Matthew McConaughey, Anne Hathaway, Jessica Chastain, these are all great choices, and they all do a good job. The sad, tragic, emotionally driven moments of this movie are also very good. I don't know many people that didn't have tears in their eyes at some point in this movie, particularly when McConaughey realizes that his family and his life on Earth is beginning to slip away from him, and it really tugs at one sense of loss and isolation and all that stuff. It's done. That is done fairly well. The problems with this movie are it's too long, similar to Peter Jackson's King Kong. This movie drags on about 3 hours. It could have been 2.5, maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. And I attribute a big chunk of this movie lasting that long because there's tons and tons and tons of astronomy exposition and lots of moments where characters are sitting down and trying to explain to the audience basically how space travel works and how you can cross from one dimension to another. And they try to do that in a way that makes it scientifically plausible for the audience. But to me, it lost any sense of realism when, at some point in the third act, I won't give this away. I've given away some stuff, but I'm not going to give this away. There is a point where the plot basically says that human emotion is something that transcends through time and space, which in a movie that is if it's a fantasy movie, that would make more sense. This movie is much more of a science fiction movie that tries to be somewhat realistic, but it really, that blend between outright fantasy and science fiction becomes a little muddled in the third act, and I don't really find it believable. I can't really put my finger on why it's not believable within this story, other than it seems, when you say something like, think back to It. Remember in It Chapter 1, it came out in 2017, there was a scene where Beverly, one of the Losers Club, she gets put in a comatose state by Pennywise, and she's brought out of that state by Ben's kiss. You know, it's like true love freed her of this comatose state. It has zero grounding within the movie's universe. It just seemed like something very cliche that the director thought, well, this is a way we could get her out of that predicament. True love's kiss. Interstellar has a moment in the movie where it seems like they're trying to pull the, love where human emotion transcends time and space. I get what Nolan's trying to go for there, but it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. One other thing that I didn't mention that is a positive for this movie, that I think is underrated, is the score. Interstellar has one of the best scores in a science fiction movie. And this is coming from somebody who loves Star Wars and someone who loves Jurassic Park, all of these movies that were composed by John Williams. This movie has a beautiful score that somehow, even though the score is both emotional but also has a feeling of you're looking at something that's happening in space. Like, it's weird because it feels like, I don't know how I can articulate this, because it definitely has a futuristic sound to it. It has a feeling of space, like somebody in space travel kind of theme and feel to it. But it's, at its core, it's very emotional, and it has a moment where it reaches that crescendo where it slowly starts to build and build and build and build and build to where the music is blaring, and it's beautiful. So that's probably my favorite part of Interstellar is no doubt the score. So it's a little long, and it runs afoul of Chris Nolan's occasional pretentiousness, but it's a good movie. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I really appreciated what he did. He tried to do something that was original, and I think for the most part he succeeded. And again, performances are good. It's definitely a slog to get through at times, so you have to be in the right mindset to watch this movie. You can't just sit down and pop it in like hey, let's watch an episode of Star Trek. You can't just pop it in any time. It's definitely a long movie, but enjoyable. And I think it's definitely a positive. It's an accomplishment for Nolan's directorial credentials. So that's just my thoughts on it. So you guys let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys again soon, okay?